De-realisation and depersonalisation might be terms that you've never heard of before. They are, however, symptoms of people's anxieties, and they can have really strange but impactful implications on people's quality of life. On this week's episode of GetPsyched, we're going to take a look at what de-realisation and depersonalisation actually is all about and learn about the ways in which they can impact people. What's up guys, welcome to another week's episode of GetPsyched, and like I said, this week we're going to be taking a look at de-realisation and depersonalisation. So obviously the first question that you have is, what exactly is this? Basically, de-realisation is when a person believes that the outside world or reality isn't actually real and isn't actually going on. It's basically an alteration in a person's experiences of reality. It's often expressed as a kind of sensory fog when a person becomes very detached from what is going on in the outside world. People who suffer from this at times describe that it's as if their life lacks spontaneity or vividness, and it's almost like their life lacks kind of any emotional colour, so to speak. For example, places that the person might go regularly might seem unfamiliar. Even people that they recognise, family members, loved ones, friends, their faces might even seem unfamiliar to them. I'm aware of how strange this actually sounds, and when I did a little bit of research, I was pretty struck by how powerful this stuff can be and how strange actually these symptoms can be. It is as it sounds though. It's almost as if somebody is detaching themselves from reality, that no matter what is going on around them, it's almost as if that doesn't seem real, as if it's not vivid like I've said, or if it lacks any kind of substance really. So that's kind of what de-realisation is, but what is depersonalisation? Well, this is a little bit different. It's basically a sense of unreality in one's own self. Depersonalisation is misconceptions kind of internalised, whereas derealisations are much more external. There is a lot of debate in the literature though about the separacy of derealisation and depersonalisation. Some academics are stating that actually the two should be combined as one. So I'm pretty familiar that people are going to be a little bit unsure as to what this actually means. Well, like I said, derealisation is that lack of grasp or lack of understanding of what is going on around us in the outside world. It's like a detachment, almost as if that reality isn't real. Depersonalisation, on the other hand, is where we feel that unreal reality is going on within us, that we don't really grasp what we're feeling or how we're thinking or behaving perhaps. So that's kind of what derealisation and depersonalisation are all about, but how and what actually causes this to happen? Well, there is a high prevalence of derealisation and depersonalisation in those that have suffered brain injuries. Those that suffer from or have suffered from occipital or temporal lobe damage, 5% of those people who suffer from such brain injuries go on to have prolonged implications of derealisation and depersonalisation. However, immediately following such a brain injury, if it's a traumatic brain injury, a TBI, up to 60% of people can have immediate implications and can have immediate experiences of derealisation and depersonalisation. Now that 60% is really high, and that dissipates as time goes on, ultimately leading to about 5% of those people that suffer from such brain injuries having long-term experiences of derealisation and depersonalisation. Epilepsy, which is often associated with temporal lobe damage, but not always, can have a real connection to depersonalisation and derealisation. Those that have epileptic fits can experience those. Anxiety can be a main cause of derealisation and depersonalisation, and it's probably got a higher prevalence than we perhaps appreciate. It often occurs in a consistent pattern of worrying and negative automatic thinking. Derealisation and personalisation can build unknowingly alongside other anxious symptoms, so at times it can be really hard to identify. I think you can resonate with this as well. If you, for example, start feeling detached from reality or detached from your own thinking and feelings, that can be really hard to illustrate to other people. That can be really hard to identify for yourself. It's really hard to kind of say, I'm feeling like reality isn't happening. That seems very odd to us. So what can often happen is that depersonalisation and realisation can go unnoticed or undiscussed really. People don't really want to talk about it, they don't really know what it is, but it can be a real symptom of anxiety. There are a number of other things that can cause depersonalisation and derealisation as well though. Things like sleep disorders and severe mental health disorders. Also things like excessive cannabis use, caffeine, antidepressant medication and psychedelics can all have implications on derealisation and depersonalisation. So we've had a little look at what exactly derealisation and personalisation are all about. We've looked at the causes. What about the treatment plans? Well, there are of course medications that can be utilised to ease the symptoms that are caused from anxiety at times, but of course there's a huge amount of debate around those, and as I've said just a minute ago, at times excessive antidepressant use can actually cause these symptoms. But psychotherapy itself can be a great way in actually managing derealisation and personalisation. It helps us to understand why the subjective derealisation is there for that individual client. We can learn techniques that bring us back to reality and remove that kind of detached feeling that can be a result of derealisation or personalisation. It can help deal with trigger events, and it can look at addressing potential causes such as unaddressed trauma, for example. Fundamentally, psychotherapy is the best way of actually managing derealisation and depersonalisation. Okay guys, thanks so much for watching this week's episode of GetPsyched. This week we've been taking a look at